The high performer, master the daily habits that create extraordinary performance. Published by Profound Audiobook. Introduction. Extraordinary performance is never an accident. It is built one decision, one habit, and one disciplined day at a time. Behind every remarkable achievement lies a quiet routine that few people ever notice. Long before the recognition, the promotions, the accomplishments, or the breakthroughs, there are countless mornings of preparation, moments of focus, difficult choices, and promises kept to oneself. High performers are not simply people who work harder. They are people who think differently, act intentionally, and refuse to let ordinary habits shape an ordinary life. Every person has the potential to perform far beyond what they currently believe is possible. The difference is rarely intelligence, talent, or opportunity. More often, it is the collection of daily behaviors that either move a person forward or quietly hold them back. Small actions repeated consistently become powerful forces that shape character, confidence, and ultimately results. In this audiobook, we will uncover the timeless principles and practical habits that transform average effort into extraordinary performance. You will learn how to raise your personal standards, build reliable systems instead of depending on motivation, protect your attention, strengthen your discipline, manage your energy, recover from setbacks, and develop the mindset that allows excellence to become your natural way of living. This is not about chasing perfection or exhausting yourself in the pursuit of success. It is about becoming the kind of person who performs with purpose, consistency, and confidence every single day. As each chapter builds upon the last, you will discover that extraordinary performance is not reserved for a gifted few. It is a way of living that anyone can develop, beginning with the choices you make today. Chapter 1. Raise your standards. Until average is no longer acceptable. Every meaningful change begins long before you see any visible results. It starts with a quiet decision that takes place inside your own mind. That decision is simple but powerful. You will no longer accept less from yourself than you are capable of giving. This is where high performance begins. It does not begin with a new planner, a perfect morning routine, or an inspiring speech. It begins the moment you raise your personal standards. The quality of your life will rarely rise above the standards you consistently choose to live by. If your standards are low, your habits will follow. If your standards are high, your daily actions will slowly begin to match them. Many people spend years hoping life will improve because their circumstances change. They wait for better opportunities, more confidence, or the perfect time to begin. High performers think differently. They understand that circumstances often respond to the standards they set for themselves. Instead of asking, "What can I get away with today?" they ask, "What does my best look like today?" That single question changes everything because it shifts your attention from doing the minimum to pursuing excellence. Your standards influence hundreds of small decisions every single day. They determine whether you wake up when the alarm rings or hit the snooze button. They decide whether you finish the work you promised yourself you would complete or postpone it until tomorrow. They affect how carefully you prepare, how honestly you communicate, and how consistently you keep your word. None of these decisions seem dramatic on their own, but together they create your reputation, your confidence, and eventually your future. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing standards with perfection. High standards do not mean expecting flawless results every day. They mean refusing to lower your effort simply because you are tired, distracted, or discouraged. Perfection demands that you never make mistakes. High standards demand that you never stop improving. That difference is important because perfection creates pressure, while high standards create progress. Imagine two people with the same level of talent beginning the same journey. One chooses to meet only the expectations placed upon them. the other chooses to exceed them whenever possible. At first, the difference between them is almost impossible to notice. Weeks pass, then months. The second person becomes more reliable, more skilled, and more trusted because they repeatedly chose a higher standard. What looked like a small difference in attitude slowly becomes a massive difference in results. This is how extraordinary performance is built, not through one extraordinary effort, but through ordinary moments handled with extraordinary intention. Raising your standards also changes the way you speak to yourself. Instead of saying, "I'll try," you begin saying, "I'll find a way." Instead of asking whether something is convenient, you ask whether it is necessary. You stop negotiating with every uncomfortable task and start recognizing that discomfort is often the price of growth. This doesn't make life easier, but it makes you stronger. Every time you choose discipline over excuses, you reinforce the identity of someone who can be trusted to follow through. Another benefit of higher standards is that they make decisions simpler. When your expectations are clear, you spend less time debating what to do. You already know the answer. If your standard is to be prepared, you prepare. If your standard is to be punctual, you arrive early. If your standard is to produce quality work, you review it before calling it finished. Standards remove unnecessary hesitation because they create clear boundaries for your behavior. As your standards rise, something remarkable begins to happen. Your confidence grows, not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you repeatedly prove to yourself that your actions match your values. Confidence is earned through evidence. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes another piece of evidence that you are becoming the person you set out to be. Over time, that quiet confidence becomes one of your greatest strengths because it no longer depends on praise, luck, or perfect circumstances. Before moving forward, ask yourself one simple question. What have you been tolerating that no longer deserves a place in your life? Perhaps it is inconsistency, procrastination, poor preparation, or settling for work that is merely acceptable. Whatever it is, decide today that average is no longer your destination. Raise your standards first, and your habits, your performance, and your results will begin rising with them. Every extraordinary life is built upon that single decision, repeated day after day, until excellence becomes the new normal. Chapter 2. Own your morning before the day owns you. Every morning offers you a fresh opportunity to decide how the rest of your day will unfold. Before the emails arrive, before the phone begins ringing, before other people's priorities compete for your attention, there is a short window that belongs entirely to you. High performers understand the value of that window. They don't treat the beginning of the day as something that simply happens to them. They use it to establish direction, energy, and focus before the outside world has a chance to interrupt. The way you begin your morning often determines the pace of everything that follows. When the day starts with rushing, reacting, and trying to catch up, that feeling tends to stay with you. You spend hours responding instead of leading. Small problems feel larger because your mind never had a chance to settle. On the other hand, when your morning begins with intention, you carry a sense of control into every conversation, every task, and every decision. The circumstances around you may still change, but your response becomes steadier because you started from a position of strength instead of stress. Owning your morning does not mean waking up at an extreme hour or following a complicated routine that takes 3 hours to complete. It means creating a sequence of simple habits that prepare you to perform at your best. A few quiet minutes to gather your thoughts, a glass of water, light movement to wake up your body, reviewing your goals, and deciding on the most important task of the day can be far more valuable than checking messages the moment your eyes open. Simplicity is often more powerful than complexity because simple habits are easier to repeat. Think about Miles Harrington, a 35-year-old logistics supervisor responsible for coordinating deliveries across several warehouses. Every morning began the same way. He woke up late after pressing the snooze button several times, checked work messages while still in bed, skipped breakfast, and rushed out the door, already feeling behind. By the time he reached the office, he was reacting to problems instead of preventing them. Delays, forgotten tasks, and unnecessary stress became part of his daily routine. Eventually, Miles realized that the problem wasn't his workload, it was the way he entered each day. He started waking up just 30 minutes earlier. Instead of reaching for his phone, he spent those minutes reviewing his schedule, identifying the 3 most important responsibilities for the day, and leaving home with a clear plan. Within a few weeks, his workdays felt noticeably different. He was calmer during unexpected challenges, better prepared for meetings, and more confident because he had already taken control before the first interruption appeared. The demands of his job hadn't changed, but the person facing those demands had. That is the hidden power of a purposeful morning. It doesn't eliminate obstacles, it changes the way you meet them. When you have already invested time in preparing your mind, small setbacks are less likely to throw you off course. Instead of constantly asking, "What should I do next?" you already know what deserves your attention. One of the biggest morning mistakes is allowing technology to become the first voice you hear every day. The moment you begin scrolling through notifications, news, or social media, you invite other people's priorities into your mind before establishing your own. Without realizing it, your attention is being directed by algorithms, headlines, and endless updates rather than by your personal goals. High performers protect the first moments of the day because they understand that attention is too valuable to give away carelessly. Another powerful habit is deciding on your most important task before the day becomes busy. Every day contains dozens of activities, but usually only 1 or 2 truly move your life forward. If you identify those priorities early, you reduce the temptation to spend hours on easy but unimportant work. Progress rarely comes from doing everything. It comes from consistently doing what matters most. Your morning is also the perfect time to strengthen your identity. Instead of thinking about everything that could go wrong, remind yourself of the person you are becoming. You are becoming someone who keeps promises, finishes meaningful work, learns continuously, and approaches challenges with discipline rather than excuses. These thoughts are not empty affirmations. They become powerful when they are supported by action. Every productive morning provides fresh evidence that your identity is changing. There will be mornings when you feel tired, unmotivated, or tempted to abandon your routine. Those are the mornings that matter most. Anyone can follow a habit when they feel inspired. High performers continue because they value consistency more than comfort. They know that success is not built on exceptional days alone. It is built on ordinary mornings that are handled with extraordinary intention. As you begin tomorrow, resist the urge to let the day decide who you will be. Decide first. Stand up with purpose. Protect your attention, prepare your mind, and take ownership of the hours ahead. When you consistently own your morning, you stop living in reaction to life. You begin leading it, one sunrise at a time. Chapter 3. Build systems that make success automatic. Excitement can help you begin, but it cannot carry you to the finish line. Every goal feels inspiring at the start. You picture the outcome, imagine the rewards, and promise yourself that this time will be different. Then life becomes busy. Your energy changes, unexpected problems appear. The enthusiasm that once felt so powerful begins to fade. This is where many people stop, believing they have lost their motivation. High performers understand something that changes everything. They never expect motivation to do the work that a good system is designed to do. A system is simply a reliable way of doing something. It removes unnecessary decisions and replaces good intentions with repeatable actions. Instead of asking yourself every morning whether you feel like exercising, you exercise because it is part of your schedule. Instead of wondering when you will work on an important project, you already know because the time has been reserved. Systems reduce uncertainty, and when uncertainty disappears, consistency becomes much easier. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably do it without giving it much thought. You don't wait until you feel inspired. You don't debate whether today is the right day. The habit has become automatic because it is connected to a system that repeats every day. High performance works the same way. The more productive behaviors become automatic, the less energy you waste convincing yourself to take action. Many people make the mistake of depending on willpower. They assume successful people simply have more self-control. In reality, high performers often rely on willpower less because they have designed environments that make good decisions easier. They prepare healthy meals before they become hungry. They organize their workspace before beginning an important task. They schedule focused work before distractions have a chance to take over. They understand that the environment often influences behavior more than determination alone. Imagine trying to save money. If every purchase requires you to resist temptation throughout the day, eventually your discipline will weaken. But if part of every paycheck is automatically transferred into savings before you ever see it, the system begins working for you. The decision has already been made. Success no longer depends on daily self-control. It depends on a structure that quietly supports your long-term goals. The same principle applies to every important area of life. If you want to read more, place a book where you normally sit each evening instead of hiding it on a shelf. If you want to exercise consistently, prepare your workout clothes the night before. If you want to improve your skills, schedule learning into your calendar as if it were an important meeting that cannot be cancelled. Small adjustments like these may seem insignificant, but they remove friction, and friction is often what prevents good habits from becoming permanent. High performers also understand the importance of starting small. Many people fail because they build systems that demand too much too soon. They create unrealistic schedules, fill every hour with ambitious goals, and expect themselves to maintain that pace indefinitely. Within a few weeks, exhaustion replaces enthusiasm. A better approach is to build habits that are almost impossible to avoid. Read 5 pages instead of 50. Spend 20 focused minutes on a project instead of waiting for 3 uninterrupted hours. Go for a short walk instead of promising yourself an intense workout every day. Small actions repeated consistently create stronger foundations than dramatic efforts that disappear after a few weeks. Another advantage of systems is that they free your mind for more important decisions. Every decision consumes mental energy. If you begin each day deciding when to wake up, what to wear, when to exercise, and what task deserves your attention, you waste valuable focus before your real work even begins. A clear routine eliminates many of those choices. You know what comes next because you have already designed the process. This allows your attention to stay focused on creativity, problem-solving, and meaningful work instead of constant decision-making. Of course, no system will be perfect forever. Life changes, responsibilities grow, new opportunities appear. High performers regularly review their routines and ask a simple question: is this system still helping me become the person I want to be? If the answer is no, they make adjustments without abandoning the entire process. Flexibility keeps a system alive. Rigidity often causes it to fail. One helpful practice is to identify the moments where you usually lose momentum. Perhaps you become distracted after lunch, skip workouts when meetings run late, or postpone important work because you don't know where to begin. Instead of blaming yourself, improve the system. Remove the obstacle that keeps appearing. Success becomes much easier when you solve recurring problems at their source, instead of fighting the same battle every day. Remember, your future is shaped less by the goals you set than by the systems you follow. Goals give you direction, but systems determine your progress. Anyone can dream about becoming healthier, wealthier, or more successful. High performers quietly build routines that move them toward those outcomes every single day. When your systems are strong, success stops feeling like something you chase. It becomes the natural result of the way you choose to live. Chapter 4. Protect your focus like your future depends on it. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you will ever possess. Money can be earned again. Lost opportunities can sometimes return. Even skills can be developed with time. But once your attention has been scattered across dozens of distractions, those hours are gone forever. Every day, countless people compete for your focus. Advertisements want it. Social media wants it, news headlines want it, emails, notifications, conversations, and endless entertainment all ask for a small piece of your attention. Individually, they seem harmless, but together they can quietly steal the time and energy required to build an extraordinary life. High performers recognize that focus is not simply the ability to concentrate. It is the ability to choose what deserves your concentration and, just as importantly, what does not. Every time you say yes to one activity, you are automatically saying no to another. If you spend an hour scrolling through content that adds little value to your life, that is an hour you cannot invest in learning a new skill, completing meaningful work, or strengthening important relationships. Focus is ultimately an act of choosing, and every choice shapes your future. One reason distractions have become so powerful is that they rarely feel dangerous. They arrive disguised as small interruptions. You tell yourself you will check one message, watch one short video, or read one article. Minutes become half an hour becomes an hour. By the end of the day, you wonder why important work remains unfinished. The problem was never a lack of ability. It was the gradual loss of attention through hundreds of tiny decisions that seemed insignificant at the time. Consider Sienna Caldwell, a 31-year-old corporate attorney working at a respected law firm. She was intelligent, hard-working, and highly respected by her colleagues, yet she constantly felt overwhelmed. Every few minutes, her phone vibrated with notifications. Emails arrived throughout the day. Team messages demanded immediate responses, and she often switched between several assignments before completing any of them. Although she spent long hours at her desk, she rarely felt satisfied with what she accomplished. After noticing this pattern, Sienna decided to make one important change. Instead of allowing every notification to interrupt her thinking, she scheduled specific times to check emails and messages. She silenced unnecessary alerts, closed unrelated browser tabs, and dedicated 90-minute blocks to a single priority before moving to anything else. The results surprised her. She completed complex legal work more quickly, made fewer mistakes, and ended each day with a greater sense of accomplishment. Her intelligence had not increased. Her focus had. This illustrates an important truth. Productivity is not about doing more things at once. It is about giving your full attention to one meaningful task until it is complete. Multitasking may create the feeling of being busy, but it often weakens the quality of your work. Every time your mind switches between activities, it needs time to regain momentum. Those small interruptions add up, leaving you mentally exhausted without producing your best results. Protecting your focus also means learning to say no. This can be difficult because saying yes often feels easier in the moment. You want to help people, avoid disappointment, or keep every opportunity open. But every unnecessary commitment fills your schedule and leaves less room for what truly matters. High performers understand that every meaningful yes requires many thoughtful no's. They are not selfish with their time. They are responsible with it. Creating an environment that supports concentration is another powerful habit. Notice how your surroundings influence your behavior. A cluttered workspace often creates a cluttered mind. Constant background noise can make deep thinking more difficult. Keeping your phone within reach invites frequent interruptions. Small changes such as organizing your desk, working in a quiet space, or placing your phone out of sight during focused work can dramatically improve your ability to concentrate. The goal is not perfection, but reducing the number of unnecessary distractions competing for your attention. Another valuable practice is working in focused intervals instead of trying to stay productive for endless hours. Your mind performs best when it has opportunities to rest and recover. Spend a period of uninterrupted time on one important task, then take a short break before beginning the next session. This rhythm allows you to maintain both concentration and energy throughout the day. High performance is not about pushing yourself until exhaustion. It is about managing your attention wisely so your best thinking remains available when it matters most. You should also pay attention to where your mind goes when there are no immediate demands. Does it drift toward worry, comparison, or endless mental conversations about things you cannot control? Focus is not only about external distractions. Internal distractions can be equally powerful. When you notice your thoughts wandering, gently return them to the present task. This simple habit, repeated consistently, strengthens your ability to remain mentally engaged even during challenging work. Imagine what could happen if you protected your attention with the same care you protect your finances or your health. Hours that once disappeared into distractions would become opportunities to build skills, solve problems, create meaningful work, and move closer to your goals. The quality of your focus determines the quality of your performance. Guard it carefully, invest it wisely, and remember that every moment of undivided attention is a step toward becoming the high performer you are capable of becoming. Chapter 5. Finish the work most people leave unfinished. Starting something new is exciting. A fresh goal fills you with possibility. You imagine what your life could become, make ambitious plans, and feel ready to change. But excitement has a habit of fading once the work becomes repetitive, difficult, or slower than expected. That is where the real difference between average performers and high performers begins to appear. Many people enjoy starting. Far fewer develop the habit of finishing. Yet the greatest rewards in life almost always belong to those who stay with the work long after the initial excitement has disappeared. Every unfinished task carries a hidden cost. It occupies space in your mind, quietly reminding you of promises you have not kept. You may not notice it at first, but unfinished work creates mental clutter. It becomes another project you keep meaning to complete, another decision waiting to be made, another responsibility postponed until tomorrow. Over time, these unfinished commitments begin to weaken your confidence. Each delay sends a subtle message that your intentions are stronger than your actions. High performers understand that finishing is a skill, not a personality trait. They are not born with extraordinary persistence. They build it by repeatedly following through, especially when the work stops being enjoyable. They know that progress is often hidden in the middle of the journey. The beginning feels exciting, and the end brings satisfaction, but the middle is where discipline quietly earns its value. If you can learn to remain committed during that ordinary stretch of work, you will accomplish what many people never do. One reason people abandon important projects is that they become distracted by something new. A new idea feels more exciting than an old commitment. A different opportunity appears more attractive than the work already in front of them. They move from one project to another, always chasing fresh inspiration, but rarely experiencing the satisfaction of completion. Months or even years later, they look back and see a collection of unfinished efforts instead of meaningful achievements. To become a high performer, you must learn to resist that temptation. Every worthwhile goal reaches a point where continuing feels less exciting than starting something new. When that moment arrives, remind yourself why you began. Return your attention to the next small step instead of becoming overwhelmed by everything that remains. Completion is rarely achieved through one heroic effort. It happens because you keep taking the next step, even when it seems ordinary. Breaking large projects into smaller milestones can make this process much easier. Looking at an entire book, business, degree, or career goal may feel overwhelming. Looking at today's assignment feels manageable. Instead of asking yourself how you will finish everything, ask what you can complete before the day ends. Small victories create momentum. Each completed step reminds your mind that progress is happening, even if the final result is still far away. Another powerful habit is setting a personal rule that important work must be completed before unnecessary entertainment begins. Too often, people reward themselves before earning the reward. They promise themselves a short break, only to discover that the break lasts much longer than expected. High performers reverse this pattern. They complete the priority first, knowing that relaxation becomes far more enjoyable when it follows meaningful accomplishment rather than replacing it. There will also be moments when your work feels imperfect. This is another reason many projects remain unfinished. People become so focused on making everything flawless that they never allow themselves to complete it. They keep making small adjustments, waiting for the perfect version that never arrives. Excellence is valuable, but perfection can become a trap. A completed piece of quality work has far greater value than a perfect idea that never leaves your mind. Sometimes the greatest progress comes from finishing, learning, and improving the next attempt. Finishing your work also changes the way other people see you. Reliability is one of the rarest qualities in any profession or relationship. People quickly notice those who consistently follow through on their commitments. They become trusted with greater responsibilities because they have demonstrated that they can be counted on. Over time, your reputation becomes one of your greatest assets. Opportunities often come not to the most talented person, but to the person who consistently finishes what they start. Perhaps even more important is what finishing does for your relationship with yourself. Every completed task becomes evidence that you are someone who follows through. Confidence grows from these repeated experiences. You stop wondering whether you have the discipline to succeed because you have already proven it to yourself, one completed commitment at a time. The promises you keep become the foundation of the person you are becoming. As you move forward, take a moment to think about something important that you have left unfinished. It may be a personal goal, a professional project, a course you intended to complete, or a habit you abandoned too soon. Instead of feeling discouraged, make a decision today. Return to it. Start where you are. Ignore the desire for perfect conditions and focus on the next meaningful action. The world is filled with people who begin with enthusiasm. Become one of the few who finish with excellence. That simple habit will separate you from the crowd more than talent ever could. Chapter 6. Choose discomfort before comfort chooses your future. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it rarely leads to meaningful growth. Left unchecked, it slowly becomes a habit. You begin choosing the easier conversation instead of the necessary one. You postpone difficult decisions because tomorrow feels more convenient than today. You stay with familiar routines even when they no longer help you grow. None of these choices seem dangerous by themselves, yet together they quietly shape a future that looks very much like the present. High performers understand this pattern. They do not chase discomfort for its own sake, but they willingly step into it whenever it leads to progress. Growth has always required a willingness to do what feels difficult. Every new skill begins with uncertainty. Every important goal demands effort before it produces rewards. Every meaningful improvement asks you to leave behind something familiar in exchange for something better. The question is not whether discomfort will appear. The question is whether you will face it voluntarily or allow it to grow into a much larger problem later. Think about the decisions people avoid. A difficult conversation that could strengthen a relationship is postponed for months. A financial problem is ignored until it becomes overwhelming. A health concern is delayed because scheduling an appointment feels inconvenient. A challenging project remains untouched because starting feels intimidating. Avoidance creates temporary relief, but it often increases future pain. What feels easier today usually becomes harder tomorrow. High performers reverse that pattern. They understand that today's discomfort is often tomorrow's freedom. They choose the difficult workout because they value long-term health more than temporary convenience. They prepare carefully when others are relaxing because they know confidence is built through preparation. They make the phone call, have the conversation, begin the project, or learn the difficult skill while others continue waiting for the perfect moment. They are not fearless. They simply refuse to let fear make their decisions. Consider Gavin Holloway, a 39-year-old commercial real estate broker. Gavin was excellent at building relationships and finding opportunities, but there was one part of his work he constantly avoided. He disliked negotiating difficult deals with demanding clients. Whenever a challenging conversation approached, he found smaller tasks to keep himself busy. He answered emails, organized paperwork, and attended unnecessary meetings, convincing himself he was being productive. In reality, he was postponing the one activity that had the greatest impact on his success. Eventually, Gavin recognized the pattern. He made a simple rule for himself. Every morning, before answering routine emails or handling minor responsibilities, he would complete the conversation he wanted to avoid most. The first few weeks were uncomfortable. His heart raced before difficult calls, and he still felt nervous. But with every conversation, his confidence grew. Negotiations became easier because experience replaced hesitation. Within months, he was closing more agreements than before, not because he had discovered a new strategy, but because he had stopped delaying the work that mattered most. There is an important lesson in Gavin's experience. Courage is rarely something you feel before taking action. More often, courage appears because you take action. Waiting until you feel completely confident usually means waiting forever. Confidence grows through repeated exposure to difficult situations, not by avoiding them. This principle applies far beyond your career. If you want stronger relationships, you must be willing to have honest conversations. If you want financial security, you must make disciplined choices instead of always choosing immediate pleasure. If you want to become healthier, you must accept temporary discomfort in exchange for long-term strength. Every area of life offers the same decision. Choose short-term comfort or long-term growth. One practical way to build this habit is to ask yourself each morning, what is the one task I am tempted to avoid today? The answer often reveals the activity with the greatest potential value. It may be preparing for an important presentation, making a difficult phone call, studying a challenging subject, or beginning a project that feels overwhelming. Instead of pushing it aside, make it your first priority. Completing one difficult task early creates momentum that carries through the rest of the day. It is also helpful to change the way you think about discomfort. Instead of treating it as a warning sign that something is wrong, begin seeing it as evidence that you are expanding your abilities. The discomfort of learning a new skill is different from the pain of regret. The discomfort of discipline is different from the frustration of missed opportunities. One lasts for a moment. The other can stay with you for years. When you compare the two, temporary discomfort becomes much easier to accept. Remember that comfort is not the enemy. Rest is necessary. Recovery is important. There are moments when slowing down allows you to perform better tomorrow. The danger comes when comfort becomes your default response to every challenge. High performers know when to recover, but they also know when it is time to lean into difficulty, because that is where meaningful progress is waiting. As you continue your journey, pay attention to the choices you make each day. Every decision either strengthens your willingness to face discomfort or strengthens your habit of avoiding it. Those choices accumulate quietly until they shape your character. Choose the difficult conversation. Choose the demanding project. Choose the disciplined habit. Every time you do, you become a little stronger than you were yesterday. And over time, those small moments of courage build a life that comfort alone could never create. Chapter 7. Protect your energy like a professional athlete. Outstanding performance is not simply a matter of working harder. It is the result of working well, and that depends on your energy. You can have the best intentions, the clearest goals, and the strongest work ethic, but if your energy is constantly drained, even simple tasks begin to feel difficult. High performers understand that energy is the fuel behind every decision, every habit, and every achievement. Instead of treating it as something that comes and goes by chance, they learn to manage it with purpose. Think about the days when you feel rested, focused, and alert. You solve problems more quickly, communicate more patiently, and make better decisions. Challenges still exist, but they seem manageable because your mind has the strength to deal with them. Now compare that with a day when you are exhausted. Small inconveniences become frustrating. Important tasks are postponed. Your concentration fades and your patience disappears. The difference is not your ability. The difference is your energy. Many people assume that success requires constantly pushing themselves to the limit. They wear exhaustion like a badge of honor and believe that being busy is the same as being productive. But staying busy and performing well are not the same thing. A car cannot travel far without fuel, no matter how powerful its engine is. In the same way, your mind and body cannot continue producing excellent work if they are never given the care they need. Professional athletes understand this better than almost anyone. Their performance depends not only on how hard they train, but also on how well they recover. They pay attention to sleep, nutrition, movement, and recovery because they know these habits directly influence how they perform when it matters most. You may not compete in a stadium, but every day asks you to perform in your own way. Whether you lead a team, build a business, study for an exam, or care for your family, your ability to perform depends on the condition of the person doing the work. Sleep is often the first habit people sacrifice when life becomes demanding. They stay awake a little longer to finish one more task, answer one more email, or watch one more episode of a show. Occasionally, this may be necessary, but making it a routine comes with a cost. A tired mind struggles to concentrate, solve problems, and regulate emotions. You may gain an extra hour today, only to lose far more through slower thinking and poor decisions tomorrow. Rest is not a reward for completing your work. It is part of the work itself because it prepares you to perform again. Movement is another essential source of energy. Your body was designed to move, yet many people spend most of the day sitting. Hours pass in front of computers, inside meetings, or behind the wheel of a car. Without regular movement, both your body and mind become sluggish. You do not need to become a professional athlete to benefit. A daily walk, stretching, strength training, or any form of regular exercise can improve your mood, sharpen your thinking, and increase your endurance. The goal is consistency rather than intensity. The food you eat also affects your ability to perform. Every meal either supports your energy or slowly drains it. While no one eats perfectly all the time, high performers understand that nutrition is not just about appearance. It is about giving the body what it needs to think clearly, recover well, and remain productive throughout the day. Small improvements made consistently often produce greater results than extreme diets that last only a few weeks. Energy is not only physical, it is emotional as well. Carrying unnecessary anger, resentment, worry, or constant stress quietly consumes mental strength. Imagine trying to run a race while carrying a heavy backpack. You can still move forward, but every step requires more effort than necessary. Unresolved emotional burdens work the same way. They reduce your capacity to think clearly and respond wisely. Learning to forgive, managing stress in healthy ways, and taking time to reflect are not signs of weakness. They are ways of protecting the energy you need to live well. Another habit that separates high performers is knowing when to step away. Many people believe taking a break means falling behind. In reality, a well-timed break often allows you to return with greater clarity and creativity. Some of the best ideas appear after a walk outside, a quiet moment away from the screen, or a few minutes of complete stillness. Continuous effort without recovery eventually leads to diminishing returns. Rest is not the opposite of productivity. It is one of the things that makes productivity possible. It is also important to notice the people and environments that influence your energy. Some conversations leave you encouraged and motivated. Others leave you mentally exhausted. Some environments inspire focus, while others create constant distraction. You cannot always control every situation, but you can become more intentional about where you spend your time and with whom. Protecting your energy sometimes means setting healthy boundaries so that your best strength is reserved for what truly matters. As you continue building the habits of a high performer, remember that your energy deserves as much attention as your schedule. A well-organized calendar means little if you are too exhausted to follow it. Treat your body and mind as your greatest performance tools. Care for them with the same discipline you bring to your work. When your energy is strong, your focus becomes sharper, your decisions become wiser, and your ability to perform at a high level becomes something you can sustain, not just for a few days, but for years to come. Chapter 8. Learn faster than your competition. The world rewards people who continue to grow. No matter how successful you become, there will always be something new to understand, a better way to solve a problem or a skill that can take your performance to the next level. High performers never reach a point where they believe they know enough. They stay curious because they understand that learning is not something you finish. It is something you practice for the rest of your life. Many people think learning belongs only in classrooms. They associate it with exams, textbooks, and degrees. But the most valuable learning often begins after formal education ends. Every challenge you face, every mistake you make, every conversation you have, and every book you read becomes an opportunity to grow. The question is not whether life is teaching you. The question is whether you are paying attention to the lessons. One of the greatest advantages you can develop is the ability to learn quickly and apply what you learn immediately. Knowledge alone has little value if it remains unused. Reading 10 books without changing your behavior is less powerful than reading one book and putting its ideas into practice. High performers close the gap between learning and doing. They take new information, test it in the real world, observe the results, and continue improving. That cycle of learning, applying, and refining allows them to grow much faster than those who collect information without acting on it. Consider Autumn Sinclair, a 28-year-old aerospace engineer working for a growing technology company. She had always been competent in her role, but she noticed that the colleagues advancing most quickly were not necessarily the smartest people in the room. They were the ones who constantly expanded their knowledge. Instead of relying only on what they already knew, they asked thoughtful questions, studied emerging technologies, and looked for ways to improve their work beyond what their job required. Autumn decided to adopt the same approach. She set aside 30 minutes every evening to study topics that were directly related to her career. She attended workshops, read industry publications, and kept a notebook where she summarized new ideas in her own words. More importantly, she looked for opportunities to apply what she learned during real projects. Over time, her confidence grew because her understanding became deeper. She began solving problems that once seemed intimidating, contributed more valuable ideas during meetings, and eventually earned greater responsibilities. Her progress was not the result of one breakthrough. It came from hundreds of small learning sessions that gradually changed the way she worked. This story reveals an important principle. Consistent learning compounds in much the same way that money does. One day of study may not transform your life, just as one deposit rarely creates wealth. But when you continue investing in your knowledge day after day, the results become remarkable. Skills build upon other skills. Ideas connect with previous experiences. Problems that once seemed impossible become familiar because you have expanded your understanding over time. Learning effectively also requires humility. The moment you believe there is nothing left to learn, your growth begins to slow. High performers are confident, but they are also teachable. They are willing to admit when they do not know something. They ask questions without worrying about appearing inexperienced because they understand that temporary embarrassment is a small price to pay for long-term wisdom. Another valuable habit is learning from people who have already achieved what you hope to accomplish. Every experienced person carries lessons that cannot be found in a textbook. Listen carefully when successful people describe their failures as well as their victories. Their mistakes can save you years of unnecessary frustration. At the same time, remember that you do not need dozens of mentors. Sometimes one meaningful conversation or one well-written book can permanently change the way you think. It is equally important to protect yourself from passive learning. Watching endless videos, collecting courses, or saving articles you never read may create the feeling of progress, but it is often an illusion. Real learning demands attention and engagement. Take notes, pause to think. Ask yourself how a new idea applies to your own life. Explain what you have learned in your own words. The more actively you participate in the learning process, the more deeply the knowledge becomes part of you. Make reflection a regular habit as well. At the end of each week, ask yourself simple questions. What did I learn? What worked well? What mistake taught me something valuable? What skill should I strengthen next? Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Without it, even years of experience can pass without meaningful improvement. With it, every week becomes another opportunity to grow. Remember that your competition is not standing still. Industries evolve, technology advances, and expectations continue to rise. If you stop learning, you slowly fall behind, even if you are working just as hard as before. The good news is that you do not need to learn everything. You simply need to keep learning something. Small improvements made consistently will always outperform occasional bursts of intense effort. As you continue your journey toward extraordinary performance, make learning part of your identity rather than just another task on your schedule. Become someone who asks better questions, seeks better answers, and eagerly applies new knowledge. The more you invest in your mind, the more valuable you become, not only to others, but to yourself. And unlike many other investments, the knowledge you gain can continue creating opportunities for the rest of your life. Chapter 9. Think like the person you want to become. Every action begins with a thought. Before you make a decision, take a risk, or develop a new habit, your mind quietly shapes the direction you will take. That is why high performance is not only about changing your behavior, it is about changing the way you think. If your thinking remains the same, your actions will eventually return to familiar patterns. Lasting transformation happens when your mindset begins to match the future you want to create. Many people focus entirely on external results. They want better careers, stronger relationships, greater financial security, or improved health. These are worthwhile goals, but they often overlook a more important question. Who do you need to become in order to create those results? Success is rarely something you chase down. More often, it is something you grow into by becoming a person capable of handling greater opportunities and responsibilities. Imagine someone who wants to become financially successful but continues making impulsive spending decisions, or someone who dreams of excellent health while ignoring daily habits that support it. The goal and the behavior are moving in opposite directions because the identity has not yet changed. High performers understand that real progress begins by becoming the kind of person who naturally makes better decisions. Once your identity changes, your habits begin to follow. One powerful way to strengthen this identity is by asking a different question throughout the day. Instead of asking, "What do I feel like doing?" ask, "What would the person I want to become do in this situation?" This simple shift changes your perspective. Feelings come and go, but identity provides direction. When you make decisions based on the person you are becoming instead of the mood you happen to be in, consistency becomes much easier. Your inner dialogue also plays an important role. Every day, you have countless conversations with yourself, whether you notice them or not. Those conversations influence your confidence, your persistence, and your willingness to take action. If you constantly tell yourself that you are disorganized, unlucky, or incapable, your mind begins looking for evidence to support those beliefs. Eventually, those beliefs shape your behavior. High performers choose their internal language carefully because they know that repeated thoughts become deeply rooted attitudes. This does not mean pretending that problems do not exist. Positive thinking alone cannot solve difficult situations. However, constructive thinking allows you to approach those situations with greater clarity. Instead of saying, "This challenge is impossible," you ask, "What can this challenge teach me?" Instead of saying, "I always fail," you ask, "What can I improve before my next attempt?" These questions keep your attention focused on growth rather than defeat. Another important habit is separating your mistakes from your identity. Everyone experiences setbacks. Everyone makes poor decisions from time to time. But there is a significant difference between saying, "I made a mistake," and saying, "I am a failure." One describes an event. The other defines your identity. High performers never allow temporary failures to become permanent labels. They learn from the experience, make adjustments, and continue moving forward without allowing one difficult moment to define who they are. The people you spend time with also influence the way you think. Ideas are contagious. Attitudes spread through conversations, habits, and shared expectations. If you constantly surround yourself with people who complain, avoid responsibility, or settle for mediocrity, it becomes much harder to think differently. On the other hand, spending time with people who value growth, discipline, and integrity naturally raises your own standards. Their way of thinking begins to influence your own, often without you realizing it. Your environment extends beyond people. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the videos you watch, and even the questions you ask yourself all shape your mindset. Every piece of information you consume either strengthens your thinking or distracts it. This is why high performers are intentional about what they allow into their minds. They understand that clear thinking requires quality input. If you consistently feed your mind with valuable ideas, your decisions gradually become wiser. It is also helpful to remember that your thoughts do not have to control you. Not every thought deserves your attention. Doubt, fear, and worry often appear without invitation. The important thing is recognizing that you have the ability to choose which thoughts you will act upon. You cannot always control what enters your mind, but you can control whether you give it power. High performers notice negative thinking without allowing it to determine their actions. As you continue building the habits of extraordinary performance, spend as much time developing your mindset as you do developing your skills. Skills create opportunities, but your thinking determines how you use them. Every decision you make is another opportunity to strengthen the identity you are creating. Think like a person who values excellence. Think like someone who keeps promises. Think like someone who grows through challenges instead of avoiding them. Over time, those thoughts become beliefs, those beliefs become habits, and those habits become the foundation of an extraordinary life. Chapter 10. Stay calm when everyone else panics. Pressure has a remarkable way of revealing who you really are. When everything is going according to plan, it is easy to appear confident, patient, and composed. But when deadlines become tighter, unexpected problems appear, or emotions begin running high, your true habits come to the surface. High performers are not people who avoid pressure. They are people who have learned to remain steady while others become overwhelmed. Their calmness allows them to think clearly when clear thinking matters most. Life will never eliminate uncertainty. There will always be situations you cannot predict and circumstances you cannot fully control. A project may suddenly change direction. A business deal may fall apart. A trusted plan may fail. People may disappoint you, and unexpected challenges may appear without warning. You cannot prepare for every event, but you can prepare your response. That is one of the greatest advantages you can develop. Many people assume that staying calm means hiding emotions or pretending nothing is wrong. In reality, calmness is something very different. It is the ability to acknowledge reality without allowing emotions to take control of your decisions. You may still feel disappointed, frustrated, or anxious, but you choose to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. That small difference often determines whether a difficult situation becomes a temporary setback or a lasting problem. When people panic, they usually narrow their attention. They become consumed by the immediate problem and lose sight of the bigger picture. They rush into decisions simply to escape discomfort. High performers do the opposite. They slow themselves down. They pause long enough to ask better questions. What is actually happening? What facts do I know? What assumptions am I making? What is the next useful step? These questions create clarity, and clarity is often the first step towards solving any challenge. Consider Preston Whitfield, a 41-year-old operations director at a manufacturing company. One morning, a major equipment failure brought production to a sudden stop. Orders were delayed, employees were frustrated, and customers were waiting for updates. As the pressure increased, people throughout the facility began reacting emotionally. Some blamed the maintenance team. Others rushed to offer solutions without understanding the problem. The atmosphere quickly became tense. Preston resisted the urge to match everyone else's panic. Instead of raising his voice or making immediate decisions, he gathered the key supervisors, reviewed the facts, and assigned clear responsibilities. One team focused on identifying the technical issue, another communicated with customers, while a third adjusted production schedules to minimize delays. Because he remained calm, everyone else gradually became calmer as well. The equipment was repaired, customer relationships were preserved, and the company recovered faster than anyone expected. The crisis had not disappeared, but steady leadership prevented it from becoming far worse. That story highlights an important truth. Calmness is contagious. People naturally look to those around them during difficult moments. If the leader becomes overwhelmed, anxiety spreads quickly. But when someone remains composed, others begin to believe that the situation can be managed. Whether you officially lead a team or simply influence the people around you, your emotional stability has a powerful effect on everyone you encounter. One practical habit for developing calmness is learning to pause before responding. Not every message requires an immediate reply. Not every disagreement needs an instant reaction. Giving yourself even a few moments to breathe, gather your thoughts, and choose your words can prevent countless unnecessary mistakes. Many regrets begin with a response that was delivered too quickly and without enough thought. Another helpful practice is separating what you can control from what you cannot. This simple habit protects your mental energy. You cannot control the weather, the economy, other people's opinions, or unexpected events. You can control your preparation, your effort, your attitude, and your response. High performers focus their attention where it can make a difference instead of exhausting themselves over circumstances beyond their influence. Your physical state also affects your emotional state. When you are sleep-deprived, constantly stressed, or mentally exhausted, even small problems can feel overwhelming. This is another reason why protecting your energy, as we discussed in the previous chapter, is so important. A healthy body supports a steady mind. The better you care for yourself, the more capable you become of handling pressure with wisdom instead of panic. It is equally important to remember that every crisis eventually passes. In the middle of difficulty, problems often feel permanent. But if you look back over your life, you will probably remember challenges that once seemed impossible and yet eventually became valuable lessons. Keeping this perspective allows you to approach today's difficulties with greater patience. Instead of believing that one setback defines your future, you begin seeing it as one chapter rather than the entire story. As you continue becoming a high performer, make emotional stability one of your greatest strengths. Practice responding instead of reacting. Slow your thinking when everyone else speeds up. Ask better questions before making decisions. Focus on what you can control and refuse to let temporary emotions dictate permanent choices. Anyone can remain confident when everything is easy. The person who stays calm when circumstances become difficult earns something far more valuable than success alone. They earn the trust of others, confidence in themselves, and the ability to lead through challenges that cause everyone else to lose their way. Chapter 11. Turn every setback into your next advantage. No journey toward excellence is free from setbacks. No matter how carefully you plan, how disciplined you become, or how hard you work, there will be moments when things do not go your way. A project may fail despite your best effort. A promotion may go to someone else. A business opportunity may disappear overnight. You may make a mistake that leaves you questioning your abilities. These experiences are not signs that you are on the wrong path. They are part of every meaningful path worth taking. The difference between average performers and high performers is not that one group avoids failure while the other does not. The difference is what happens after the setback. Many people allow disappointment to define their future. They become cautious, lose confidence, and gradually stop aiming for meaningful goals. High performers choose a different response. They refuse to waste a difficult experience. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" they ask, "What can this experience teach me that success never could?" Every setback contains information. Sometimes it reveals a weakness in your preparation. Sometimes it exposes a habit that needs to change. Other times it teaches patience, humility, or resilience. The lesson is not always obvious in the moment, especially when emotions are still fresh. But if you are willing to reflect honestly instead of reacting emotionally, every difficult experience can become valuable. The setback itself may not be your choice, but what you learn from it always is. One of the biggest mistakes people make after experiencing failure is believing it says something permanent about who they are. They confuse an outcome with an identity. A failed project becomes proof that they are incapable. A rejected application becomes evidence that they are not good enough. One mistake convinces them to lower their expectations for themselves. High performers refuse to make that connection. They understand that performance can improve, skills can be developed, and strategies can be changed. A setback is an event, not a definition. Reflection is one of the most powerful tools you can develop after disappointment. Rather than immediately moving on or pretending nothing happened, spend time asking yourself honest questions. What worked well despite the outcome? What could I have done differently? Which parts were under my control and which were not? What will I change next time? These questions shift your attention from regret to improvement. They transform experience into wisdom instead of allowing it to become wasted pain. It is also important to separate temporary emotion from long-term decision-making. Immediately after a setback, frustration, embarrassment, or discouragement can cloud your judgment. During those moments, avoid making major decisions based on how you feel. Give yourself time to recover emotionally before deciding what comes next. A clear mind sees possibilities that an emotional mind often overlooks. High performers understand that a pause for reflection is not weakness. It is a sign of maturity. Another valuable habit is maintaining perspective. A single difficult chapter does not determine the entire story of your life. Think about people you admire in any profession. Their success was rarely built on uninterrupted victories. Behind every achievement were moments of rejection, unexpected obstacles, and difficult lessons that strengthened them over time. What made them remarkable was not perfect circumstances, but their willingness to continue learning after every setback. One practical way to build resilience is to expect challenges rather than being surprised by them. When you assume every plan will unfold exactly as expected, even small problems feel overwhelming. But when you understand that obstacles are a normal part of progress, you respond differently. You stop asking why difficulties exist and start asking how you will move through them. This mindset reduces frustration because challenges no longer feel like interruptions. They become opportunities to practice the very qualities you are trying to develop. There is also tremendous value in celebrating recovery rather than perfection. Too often, people measure themselves only by flawless performance. But true strength is revealed by how quickly and wisely you recover after falling short. If you learn from a mistake, adjust your approach, and return with greater determination, you have already gained something valuable. Every recovery strengthens your confidence because it reminds you that you can handle difficulty without giving up. Remember that resilience is built in ordinary moments, not just during major life events. Every time you choose to continue after receiving criticism, every time you return to a habit after missing a day, every time you try again after an unsuccessful attempt, you are strengthening your ability to handle larger setbacks in the future. Resilience is like a muscle. It grows stronger through repeated use, not through avoidance. As you continue your journey toward extraordinary performance, stop viewing setbacks as roadblocks that permanently stand in your way. Begin seeing them as turning points that can redirect you toward greater wisdom, stronger character, and better decisions. Some of your greatest lessons will come from experiences you would never have chosen for yourself. Yet those same experiences may one day become the reason you succeed where others quit. Every setback gives you two options: carry it as a burden or use it as a stepping stone. High performers always choose the second path, and that choice is what allows them to keep moving forward long after others have stopped. Chapter 12. Earn a reputation that opens doors before you knock. Long before people know your abilities, they notice your reputation. It quietly introduces you before you enter the room, influences how others respond to you, and often determines whether opportunities find their way to you. A strong reputation cannot be purchased, borrowed, or built overnight. It is earned through hundreds of small actions that consistently demonstrate who you are. High performers understand that every decision they make is adding to or taking away from the reputation they are creating. Many people believe that success comes from being seen by the right people. While visibility certainly matters, it is far more important to become the kind of person others remember for the right reasons. Imagine two individuals with similar talent and experience. One consistently arrives prepared, keeps promises, communicates honestly, and delivers quality work. The other is talented but frequently misses deadlines, offers excuses, and requires constant reminders. Over time, who do you think people will trust with greater responsibility? Talent may open the first door, but character keeps the doors opening. Reputation is built when no one is paying attention. It grows in the ordinary moments that rarely receive applause. It grows when you prepare thoroughly for a meeting instead of relying on last-minute effort. It grows when you return a phone call you promised to make. It grows when you admit a mistake instead of hiding it. These actions may seem small, but together they form a pattern. People trust patterns far more than promises. Consider Naomi Prescott, a 37-year-old commercial architect known for managing complex projects. Early in her career, she decided that every client, regardless of the project's size, deserved the same level of preparation and professionalism. She reviewed every detail before meetings, responded to questions promptly, and always communicated honestly about timelines, even when the truth was difficult to deliver. She never promised what she could not accomplish, and when unexpected problems arose, she addressed them immediately instead of hoping they would disappear. Over the years, Naomi noticed something remarkable. Many of her new clients had never met her before, yet they already trusted her. They had heard about her from previous clients, contractors, and business partners who appreciated her reliability. She spent very little time looking for new opportunities because her reputation was bringing opportunities to her. Her success was not built on clever marketing or constant self-promotion. It was built on years of consistently doing what she said she would do. That is how reputation compounds. One satisfied client tells another. One trustworthy employee is recommended for greater responsibility. One dependable friend becomes someone others naturally turn to during difficult times. The opposite is also true. Small acts of carelessness accumulate just as steadily. Repeated lateness, broken promises, poor preparation, or inconsistent effort eventually become part of how people remember you. Reputation is always growing, whether you are intentionally building it or not. One of the strongest foundations of a lasting reputation is reliability. People value individuals they can depend on, especially when circumstances become challenging. Reliability means more than simply completing tasks. It means following through without constant reminders. It means showing up prepared, meeting commitments, and taking responsibility when things do not go according to plan. Reliable people reduce stress for everyone around them because others know they can be trusted. Honesty is another quality that strengthens reputation over time. It can be tempting to exaggerate achievements, hide mistakes, or promise results that are difficult to deliver. Those choices may create short-term advantages, but they eventually damage trust. High performers understand that credibility is far more valuable than temporary approval. They speak truthfully, even when the truth is uncomfortable, because they know trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. Humility also plays an important role. A strong reputation is not created by constantly telling people how capable you are. It is created by consistently demonstrating your character through your actions. High performers allow their work to speak for them. They continue learning, remain open to feedback, and treat others with respect, regardless of their position or status. Confidence and humility are not opposites. In fact, they often strengthen one another. Truly capable people rarely feel the need to prove themselves at every opportunity. It is equally important to remember that your reputation extends beyond your professional life. The way you treat family members, friends, neighbors, and strangers reveals just as much about your character as your achievements at work. Kindness, respect, and integrity are not qualities reserved for public moments. They become meaningful when they appear consistently in private as well. The person you are when no one expects anything from you is often the truest reflection of your character. As you continue your journey toward extraordinary performance, ask yourself an important question. If people described you using only the habits they consistently observe, what would they say? Would they describe someone who follows through, keeps promises, and raises the standard for those around them? Or would they describe someone whose potential is greater than their consistency? The answer is not fixed. Every day gives you another opportunity to shape the reputation you are creating. Earn trust through your actions, protect it through your integrity, and allow your character to become the introduction that opens doors long before you ever have to knock. Chapter 13. Surround yourself with people who raise your standards. No one becomes a high performer entirely alone. Every person is influenced by the people they spend time with, the conversations they have, and the environment they choose to live in. Whether you realize it or not, your expectations, habits, and beliefs are constantly shaped by those around you. If you spend enough time in an environment where excuses are normal, you may begin making excuses yourself. If you spend time with people who value discipline, responsibility, and growth, those qualities gradually become more natural to you. The people closest to you quietly help shape the person you eventually become. This does not mean you should judge people by their success or avoid anyone facing difficulties. Life brings challenges to everyone. What matters is their attitude toward those challenges. Do they look for solutions or only complain? Do they take responsibility for their actions or constantly blame circumstances? Do they encourage growth in others or become uncomfortable when someone tries to improve? These qualities have a powerful influence because attitudes are contagious. Think about how easily habits spread. Spend enough time with people who read regularly, exercise consistently, and use their time wisely, and those behaviors begin to feel normal. Spend enough time with people who waste hours complaining, gossiping, or avoiding responsibility, and those habits can also begin to feel acceptable. Human beings naturally adapt to the standards of the groups they belong to. That is why choosing your environment is one of the most important decisions you will ever make. High performers are intentional about the relationships they build. They seek people who challenge them to think more clearly, work more consistently, and become better versions of themselves. These individuals are not always the loudest or the most successful. Often they are simply people with strong character. They keep their word, continue learning, and approach life with humility and discipline. Being around people like this quietly raises your own expectations because you begin seeing what is possible through their example. One of the greatest gifts another person can give you is honest feedback. While compliments feel good, constructive feedback helps you grow. High performers value people who are willing to tell them the truth with kindness and respect. They understand that someone who points out a weakness is not necessarily criticizing them. They may be helping them avoid years of repeated mistakes. Instead of becoming defensive, they listen carefully and ask themselves whether there is something valuable to learn. At the same time, be willing to become that kind of person for others. Encourage people to pursue meaningful goals. Celebrate their progress without becoming jealous of it. Offer honest advice when it is welcomed and support them during difficult seasons. Relationships become stronger when growth moves in both directions. A circle of people committed to improving together creates momentum that is difficult to build alone. It is also important to understand that your environment extends beyond the people you meet in person. Every book you read introduces you to another way of thinking. Every meaningful podcast, lecture, or biography allows you to learn from someone whose experiences may be very different from your own. If you cannot yet surround yourself with the people you admire, begin by surrounding yourself with their ideas. Wisdom has always traveled farther than geography. You can learn valuable lessons from people you may never meet. Another powerful habit is limiting your exposure to influences that consistently lower your standards. This does not mean cutting people out of your life simply because they disagree with you or see the world differently. It means recognizing when certain relationships repeatedly encourage habits that pull you away from the person you are trying to become. If someone constantly encourages procrastination, negativity, dishonesty, or complacency, you must decide how much influence you are willing to allow that person to have over your life. Remember that you also influence the people around you. Someone may be watching the way you handle challenges, keep commitments, or respond to setbacks. Your consistency can encourage others to raise their own standards. Your discipline can inspire someone else to become more disciplined. Whether you intend it or not, you are helping shape the environment of those around you through your daily example. As your goals become bigger, choosing the right environment becomes even more important. Ambitious dreams often require encouragement during difficult seasons. There will be moments when you question yourself, face setbacks, or feel tempted to settle for less. During those times, supportive and growth-minded people can remind you of your purpose when your own confidence begins to fade. They help you continue moving forward when giving up seems easier. Take a moment to think about the people who influence your thinking the most. Ask yourself whether they encourage the qualities you want to develop or reinforce the habits you are trying to leave behind. You cannot always choose everyone who enters your life, but you can choose who has the greatest influence over your future. Surround yourself with people who expect more from themselves and inspire more from you. When excellence becomes the standard of your environment, maintaining excellence in your own life becomes far easier. Chapter 14. Measure what matters and improve every week. Progress is difficult to recognize when you never stop to examine it. Days blend into weeks, weeks become months, and before long, an entire year has passed. You stay busy, complete countless tasks, and wonder why your biggest goals still feel distant. The problem is not always a lack of effort. Sometimes it is a lack of awareness. High performers understand that improvement does not happen by accident. They measure their progress because they know that what gets examined gets improved. Imagine trying to travel to an unfamiliar destination without ever looking at a map. You might stay in motion for hours, but there is no guarantee you are moving in the right direction. Life works the same way. Activity alone does not create progress. You need regular moments to pause, evaluate where you are, and decide whether your daily actions are leading you toward the future you want. Without reflection, even hard work can become aimless. Consider Grant Ellsworth, a 33-year-old management consultant working with fast-growing companies. Grant was ambitious and disciplined. He filled every day with meetings, client presentations, and long hours at his desk. From the outside, he appeared highly productive. Yet despite all his effort, he often felt as though he was running in circles. He stayed busy, but he was not always improving. Everything began to change when Grant created a simple weekly review. Every Friday afternoon, before ending his work week, he spent 30 minutes asking himself a few important questions. What were my biggest accomplishments this week? Which mistakes slowed me down? Where did I waste time? What habit helped me the most? What is the one improvement I will focus on next week? At first, the process felt ordinary, but after several months, the results became impossible to ignore. He noticed recurring patterns that had previously gone unnoticed. He became more intentional with his time, corrected small problems before they became larger ones, and steadily improved his performance. His success did not come from working longer hours. It came from understanding himself better. Grant's story reminds us that awareness creates improvement. When you consistently observe your own behavior without making excuses, you begin seeing opportunities that were always there. You recognize habits that support your goals and habits that quietly work against them. Instead of repeating the same mistakes, you begin making thoughtful adjustments that produce better results over time. One of the simplest ways to measure progress is by keeping a journal. This does not require writing pages every day. Even a few honest sentences can reveal valuable insights. Record what went well, what challenged you, and what you learned. Over time, your journal becomes more than a collection of notes. It becomes a record of your growth. Reading entries from several months earlier often reminds you how much progress you have made, even when it felt invisible at the time. It is also helpful to measure behaviors instead of only outcomes. Many people become discouraged because they focus entirely on results they cannot immediately control. They worry about promotions, income, recognition, or other long-term achievements. High performers pay closer attention to the daily actions that eventually produce those outcomes. Did you complete your most important task? Did you protect your focus? Did you keep your promises? Did you continue learning? These are the measurements that remain within your control, and they are the ones that gradually shape your future. Another valuable habit is looking for patterns instead of isolated events. Everyone has an unproductive day. Everyone makes mistakes. One difficult day tells you very little, but repeated patterns tell a story. If you notice that you regularly lose focus during certain hours, repeatedly delay difficult tasks, or consistently feel exhausted by the end of the week, those patterns deserve your attention. Once you identify them, you can begin changing the systems that create them. Remember that measurement is not about criticizing yourself. It is about becoming more aware. Many people avoid examining their progress because they fear discovering how far they still have to go. High performers take the opposite approach. They welcome honest evaluation because they know that truth is the foundation of improvement. You cannot improve what you refuse to acknowledge. Honest reflection is not an act of self-judgment. It is an act of self-respect. As your goals become larger, regular reviews become even more valuable. Weekly reflection helps you make small corrections before small mistakes become major setbacks. It keeps you aligned with your priorities instead of allowing distractions to quietly take over. Rather than waiting until the end of the year to evaluate your life, you improve 1 week at a time. Those small adjustments compound just as powerfully as your daily habits. As you finish this chapter, make one commitment to yourself. Set aside a few minutes every week to review your progress with complete honesty. Celebrate the habits that are moving you forward. Learn from the choices that held you back. Then choose one small improvement to carry into the following week. You do not need dramatic changes to build an extraordinary life. You need the humility to evaluate yourself, the courage to make adjustments, and the discipline to improve a little more than you did the week before. That is how high performers continue growing long after others believe they have learned enough. Chapter 15. Become the high performer you were capable of becoming. Throughout this audiobook, you have discovered an important truth. Extraordinary performance is not created by one life-changing decision or one unforgettable moment. It is built through countless ordinary moments that most people overlook. Every habit you practice, every standard you raise, every difficult decision you make, and every promise you keep to yourself becomes another brick in the foundation of the person you are becoming. High performance has never been about doing something extraordinary once. It has always been about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, day after day. Many people spend their lives searching for a secret that does not exist. They believe there must be a shortcut, a hidden strategy, or a single breakthrough that will suddenly transform everything. But lasting success rarely arrives that way. It grows quietly. It develops through consistency so gradual that you may not notice the changes from one day to the next. Yet when you look back after months or years, you realize that those small choices have completely changed your direction. Think about the journey you have taken through these chapters. You learned that everything begins by raising your standards because your life naturally follows the expectations you set for yourself. You discovered the importance of taking ownership of your mornings instead of beginning each day in reaction to the world around you. You learned how reliable systems outperform temporary motivation, why protecting your focus allows your best work to emerge, and how finishing what you start builds confidence that cannot be borrowed from anyone else. You also explored the value of choosing discomfort before it becomes unavoidable. Growth has always required courage, and every meaningful achievement asks you to leave familiar ground behind. You learned that protecting your energy is just as important as managing your time, because a tired mind cannot consistently produce excellent work. You saw how lifelong learning keeps you adaptable in a changing world, and how your thinking shapes every decision long before your actions become visible. Along the way, you discovered that emotional stability is one of the greatest strengths a person can develop. Remaining calm under pressure allows you to solve problems while others become consumed by them. You learned that setbacks are not the opposite of success, but part of the process that prepares you for it. Every challenge carries a lesson if you are willing to look for it instead of allowing disappointment to define you. You also learned that your reputation is built through consistent actions rather than impressive words. Trust grows slowly, but once earned, it opens opportunities that effort alone cannot create. You reflected on the importance of surrounding yourself with people who encourage discipline, integrity, and growth, because the environment you choose quietly influences the person you become. Finally, you discovered the value of measuring your progress regularly so that each week becomes another opportunity to improve rather than simply another week that passes. When you place all of these lessons together, a larger picture begins to emerge. High performance is not a collection of separate habits. It is a way of living. Each principle strengthens the others. Higher standards make stronger systems possible. Better systems protect your focus. Greater focus leads to better execution. Better execution builds confidence. Confidence encourages resilience, and resilience allows you to continue growing through every challenge life places in your path. None of these habits exist in isolation. Together, they create a powerful cycle of continuous improvement. There will still be days when your motivation disappears. There will be mornings when getting started feels difficult, setbacks that test your patience, and moments when progress seems slower than you hoped. Do not mistake those moments for failure. They are simply reminders that growth is an ongoing process. The goal has never been to perform perfectly every day. The goal is to return to the habits that move you forward again and again until excellence becomes your normal way of living. Remember that the greatest competition you will ever face is not another person. It is the version of yourself that settles for less than you are capable of becoming. Every day presents that choice. You can repeat familiar patterns, or you can choose actions that move you closer to the life you truly want. The decision may seem small in the moment, but repeated over months and years, it shapes your character, your opportunities, and your future. As you leave this audiobook, do not try to change everything overnight. Choose one habit that spoke to you the most and begin there. Practice it until it becomes part of who you are. Then build the next habit upon that foundation. Improvement is strongest when it is steady. Every meaningful transformation is the result of simple actions performed consistently with purpose. The person capable of extraordinary performance has never been someone else. That person has always been within you, waiting for your daily choices to bring them to life. Raise your standards, protect your time and energy, keep learning, finish what you begin, stay calm under pressure, continue improving, even when no one is watching. If you do these things with patience and consistency, extraordinary performance will no longer be something you admire from a distance. It will become the way you live, the way you work, and the legacy you leave behind. Conclusion. Every extraordinary life is built one ordinary day at a time. That may not sound dramatic, but it is one of the most empowering truths you can ever understand. High performance has never been reserved for a select group of gifted people. It has always belonged to those who consistently choose better habits, higher standards, and purposeful action. The difference between an average life and an extraordinary one is rarely a single breakthrough. It is the accumulation of thousands of small decisions made with intention. Throughout this audiobook, you have discovered that excellence begins by raising your personal standards. Once you expect more from yourself, your habits begin to change. You learned to take ownership of your mornings instead of allowing the day to control you. You saw why dependable systems always outperform temporary motivation, and why protecting your focus is essential in a world filled with endless distractions. You discovered that finishing what you start strengthens your confidence, while choosing discomfort today prevents regret tomorrow. You also learned that sustainable performance depends on protecting your energy just as much as managing your time. You explored the lifelong value of continuous learning and discovered that the person who keeps growing will always have an advantage over the person who stops. You saw how your thinking shapes your actions long before your actions shape your results. You learned to remain calm under pressure because clear minds solve problems that emotional reactions often make worse. Perhaps one of the greatest lessons is that setbacks are never the end of the journey unless you decide they are. Every challenge carries an opportunity to become wiser, stronger, and more resilient. Rather than allowing failure to define you, you can allow it to refine you. That single shift in perspective has the power to change the direction of your entire life. You also discovered that your reputation is quietly built through consistent actions. Every promise you keep, every responsibility you honor, and every act of integrity strengthens the trust others place in you. At the same time, the people you choose to surround yourself with either raise your standards or slowly lower them. Your environment influences your habits more than you may realize, which is why choosing relationships that encourage growth is one of the wisest investments you can make. Finally, you learned the importance of measuring your progress. Improvement rarely happens by accident. It happens when you pause, reflect honestly, celebrate what is working, and make small adjustments before they become major corrections. A single week of improvement may seem insignificant, but 52 weeks of steady growth can completely transform your life. As you close this audiobook, remember that you do not need to implement every lesson tomorrow. Real transformation does not come from overwhelming yourself with dozens of new habits. It comes from choosing one meaningful change, practicing it until it becomes part of your identity, and then building upon that foundation. Small improvements repeated consistently create extraordinary results because they compound over time. There will be days when your motivation fades, your progress feels slow, or unexpected obstacles appear. Do not mistake those moments for failure. Return to the principles you have learned. Raise your standards again. Protect your attention again. Follow your systems again. Learn another lesson. Take one more step. Keep one more promise to yourself. High performers are not defined by perfect days. They are defined by their willingness to keep moving forward after imperfect ones. Years from now, the habits you choose today will shape the person you become. Every decision is casting a vote for your future identity. Choose discipline over delay. Choose purpose over distraction. Choose growth over comfort. Those choices may seem small in the moment, but together they create a life marked by confidence, excellence, and lasting impact. The journey of becoming a high performer does not end with the final page of this audiobook. In many ways, it begins here. Every sunrise gives you another opportunity to become a little wiser, a little stronger, and a little more intentional than you were yesterday. Keep learning, keep improving, keep raising the standard for your own life. If you commit yourself to that lifelong pursuit, extraordinary performance will no longer be something you hope to achieve someday. It will become the natural expression of who you choose to be every single day.